Hello there and welcome to El Loco for Leeds. It's my channel where we talk all things Leeds United. And today, in the lead up to the Leeds Leicester game, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by former Leeds and Leicester centre back Matt Heath. Matt, great to have you on. How are you doing, mate?
Obviously, it's a little bit of a weird situation we're all in at the minute, and you can only do what you can do. Like, thank God, professional football. I don't know if I should say, but at least the football's still on the telly, so you can keep watching it and keep entertained. And I'm sure it obviously helps you with your podcast. But no, apart from that, I'm doing really well, thank you.
Good man, good. So we'll start off then, Matt. I'll talk about your time with Leicester in a little while, but I'd first like to get to your time with Leeds. So you signed with Leeds on loan, didn't you, initially, Matt? In sort of November, sort of early mid-season time.
Mm.
Obviously, you came from Coventry. What was the kind of thinking to come to Leeds at the time? Because obviously another Championship side, we were struggling in the league at that time. What kind of swung your decision to initially join on loan?
From my honest opinion, I'd been. I know we're going to speak about Leicester in a bit, but I'd been at Leicester with Mickey Adams. He went over to Coventry. He took me over to Coventry. So then I worked with Mickey Adams at Coventry for a couple of years. And then, to be fair, I think it was just a case of I'd been with him for so long. He was probably getting a little bit of pressure. He wanted to freshen it up a little bit. And he kind of said to me, look, I don't want you to go, but if you want to move on, then, you know, we're happy to do so. And then straight away, he had an assistant called Alan Cork, who used to play for the Crazy Gang. Like, really, really fun bloke to have on the training pitches as number two. And they obviously rehearsed it, but within a second, Alan Cork went, Leeds want you. I've just been on the phone to Wisey. Leeds want you. It's a great club. You might as well get up there. So I was like, oh, hold on a minute. So it was, to be fair, it was a no-brainer. It was the first time that I'd moved away from home. I'm a Leicester lad. Still lived in Leicester when I played for Cov. So apart from that kind of moving away for the first time, it was a no-brainer, really. Like, they both said to me, such a big club, big history, you won't understand how big the club is. And kind of being a young, naive footballer, you take that with a pinch of salt. What they say, you think they're just trying to get you out the door. But literally, it is huge. And still, obviously, you guys know, but still now you think, oh, my God, this is on a different scale to Leicester, Coventry, altogether. I know Leicester have gone on and done really well recently, but yeah, fan base and size of the club, along with the history that they've got, and now they're back in where they rightly should be in the Prem. Yeah, that's how it come about, really. So, and Wisey was an old teammate at Leicester and Coventry with me as well. So it was one of them where I was going to a familiar place or familiar surroundings as such as a manager, and so I knew him as well. So it was an easy decision to make, to be honest, George.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ask you a little bit about Wise later on that, because I know he, like you said, he played with you at Leicester and at Coventry as well. So, but obviously, you didn't have much time to get yourself acclimatised to Leeds before you ended up making your debut. So you made your debut a couple of days later, didn't you, against Colchester? How did you feel about that? Obviously, coming in, not much time to settle, and then playing. I mean, what was the sort of couple of days like when you first signed?
That's kind of normal for a footballer. Like,
Right.
you do not know where you're going to be playing the next day. Literally, it could happen. Obviously, more often than not, you're staying where you are, but that could happen. And to know that, you know, you go into training one day, manager says we don't want you, and then, you know, 3 or 4 days time, you're playing, let alone you're up in Leeds the next day. It's kind of a normal thing. So the actual quick move, you kind of take with a pinch of salt. And it happened to, even though I was young, it had happened to me previously, like going out on loan and moving really quickly. But you know, when I actually got to Leeds, it was, as you know, it was a strange time. It was a kind of a changeover, crossover, getting, you know, a few of the older, more established players out the door that had been there a while, probably, you know, paid a little bit more. And it was kind of a bit of a, I assume a crossover time when Dennis Wise had been told that he had to, cut the budget, get a few players in, and I'm sure as a manager, and I kind of understand it now, it's best to get players in that you can trust personality-wise, and you know what they're like on the pitch. And I think that's a big thing, getting players in that you trust, getting players in that are not going to be bad eggs, and getting players in that will help the dressing room as well as be good on the pitch, good squad people, will work hard. So, yeah, it was a strange couple of days, as in the sense that it happened quickly. And it was, I can remember, like, I spoke to him recently, actually, over a few messages, but I think Butts was the centre-back at the time, and he was getting kicked out and I was coming in, so I was kind of taking his place, really. And I remember for the couple of days I was there, he hadn't left, but I never saw him. He kind of hid away. He was obviously in a little bit of a, not happy with why is he coming in and kicking him out. But it did seem a little bit of a, not hostile, but a strange atmosphere going in. But that's football. Like, you just get on with it.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, say, it moves so quickly, doesn't it? You haven't so much time to think, really, have you? So, I mean, coming in there then, of that, we won 3-0. I mean, what was your sort of memories of that, of your debut? What can you remember of stepping out of Ellen Road at the, first time?
Do you know what? I can actually remember stepping out, the noise coming out of that tunnel when the singing, marching on together, coming out, the noise, the roar. It was different to anywhere else I'd been. It was obviously an older ground as well, which I think, in my opinion, creates a better atmosphere as well. And I mean, like, I don't want to say it, but from memory, I feel like it was a comfortable win for us. And I did feel like playing at home with that backing was an extra cliche again, but an extra man. And I thought, you know what, playing here might be quite easy. But then obviously on the flip side, if you have a bad game, you feel the pressure a little bit more and people get on your back. So swings and roundabouts, really. Whenever you did well, and I do feel like whenever you went 1 or 2 up, it was easy to see the win out because other teams crumbled and fans got behind you and whatever. But yeah, from my memory, I know it was quite a while ago, but I enjoyed that first game. It was a good one. It's always nice to get your first win.
Well, that's it. And you played alongside Matt Kilgallen, didn't you, as, in the centre-back pairing. How did you feel like having those players like Kilgallen, and there was Richardson as well, who played in the Premier League? Do you think that sort of helped the team to kind of get through games? Or how did you feel, you struck up did you feel like you struck up a good partnership with the likes of Kilgallen?
I mean, like, it's hard to put into words, but wherever you go into a new team, you obviously, unless you knew somebody from a previous club, you don't know anybody. But everyone knows what they got to do. Everyone knows the jobs. Yeah, you do get better relationships with certain players, and you do play better, maybe complement each other a little bit more. And I suppose that comes with winning games and getting the confidence in who you're playing next to. But to be honest, any professional footballer would be able to slot in next to anyone else. And as long as they're, willing, and they've all got the same mentality and they all want to, play for the manager and do the right thing, it's not that difficult to do. So, yeah, no, I obviously knew all the players that were there, and, we had a lot of good attacking flair as well in the team at the time. So you just knew the calibre of players that I was going to be playing with. And they were down at the bottom of the league at the time, and obviously I thought that we could get out of it, which we didn't. But, it was a great opportunity for me personally. And, like I say, some real quality players around me.
We did have a good side back then. We really underachieved, obviously, in the end. But, I mean, you were a mainstay in the team from the moment you made your debut, really, Matt, weren't you? You only missed the last couple of games, I think. So, what was it like playing under Wise? Did your relationship change from you being a player with him, a teammate, and then for him to step up as being your manager? How did that dynamic kind of go?
Do you know what? It's a funny one, really, because I'm not a Leeds fan. I don't know the relationship they they have thinking back with him. I don't think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's the best relationship that the fans have with that era. Am I right?
Probably, mate. Yeah, but I think it's probably just because we got relegated and stuff like that. I think going into League One, that's probably a little bit more of a kind of nicer era, maybe, if you like. But yeah, I mean, personally, I think that season, that season going down, it was quite a downer, wasn't it, really? But, having said that, obviously you still support the team and support whoever's pulling on the shirt. And it was a tricky season, wasn't it, really? But you scored your first goal, didn't you, Matt, in that 2-1 win against Hull? What was it like scoring your first goal, and what can you remember about that match?
I feel like, do you know what? I'm actually I can't remember the match that well. There's certain matches that you remember full, and there's certain matches you half kind of like they slip away from you. So if I'm going to be totally honest, I can't remember much about that game or that goal. With regards to Wisey, he was always a good. We got on really like professionally really well as players. So then moving over when he was a manager. And I've said it to so many of my friends that when they say who's the best manager that you've played under and enjoyed your time, and that time, probably not that season obviously because it was a negative, but the season that we'll probably go on and speak about in a little bit, or at least the first half of it, that was probably one of the best like half the seasons I had as a professional and I do put it down to the atmosphere that he created within the squad, the players that he brought in within the squad. And everyone was like, literally, it's so hard to think how many times you can think that the whole squad pulls in the right direction. Usually I have a few players that are kicking up a fuss because they're not in the team. But that, when we move on, that half a season, everyone was pulling in the right direction in the same way. Subs were knowing that they were going to get on and help the team. They weren't trying to, kick a fuss thinking they should be in the team. And I do feel like he had the basis there of him and another big point was his assistant Gus Poyet. Them two together as a team, I think they had something going there. So yeah, he was I know he could flip, and I know he had, he's a controversial character, and he has a couple of different sides, and he was a boss. He had a sharp tongue if he needed to. But at the time, with me, he was fine. Like he knew what I was about, and he knew that I wouldn't, take the mickey or anything. I still got a few rollickings here and there for doing things, but you got to expect that, haven't you? So
can you remember any in particular that you got, Matt, from him?
I can remember, and this is like how silly it was. I can remember going away on it was like a mid-season training camp away to Cyprus, I think it was, in that season. And we did a bit of training, played a friendly game out there. We were defending a corner, and I went up to try and head it out, and I caught it with my arm. Gave a penalty away because it hit my arm. Friendly game away. Didn't mean to do it, and he absolutely battered me. Every word under the sun. Like, what you do? Like, I'm not going to say what he said, but what you doing that for? You idiot! Like, stupid! Like, what? And I was just like thinking, oh God! But football's football. You get that from managers, and you just have to take it and use it as motivation, really.
Well, that's it. You've just got to get on with it, don't you, really? But it's, like you say, I suppose he could have a bit of that kind of loose cannon kind of feel to him a little bit. But, after that result, you obviously scored in that game. We only won 5 of the last 17 games, and obviously, unfortunately, we got relegated. What can you remember? I think those last 2 games were the only 2 you missed, actually, Matt. But what can you remember about that sort of whole time where relegation was kind of looming? What was the kind of feel in the dressing room at that time?
I think when I joined, like you say, in the November time, we were bottom of the league, always with a feeling that you're going to get out of it. And then just obviously each month that goes by and by and by, you're thinking, hold on a minute, we're struggling here. even though we've got all these good players and this quality around us, and yeah, we could go and batter a team 3-0 easily and easily win, but obviously it's consistency over a whole season. So do you know what? I just feel like it was always looming on the cards. The atmosphere around the club wasn't great. Obviously, fans didn't enjoy being down at the bottom of the league and thinking about relegation. So it was kind of the inevitable happened eventually. Obviously, a horrendous feeling as a player to get relegated. It's happened a couple of times to me. And you just feel a sense of guilt, really. You're playing and you're part of that team that gets relegated. So it's one of them things where now I finish, you kind of try and block them kind of times out. And you think of the nice times. And I mean, your family or friends don't ever ask you about the time you got relegated, do they? They ask about the nice stuff.
But what was it like in the dressing room after that game that we got relegated? It was the Ipswich one where it was all but basically confirmed. It turned a little bit sour. I know you didn't play in that one, but what was it like? You must have been around the dressing room afterwards. I mean, what were the squad, like you say, were they together at all, or was there a lot of sort of little groups and people not quite pulling in the same direction?
I feel like, do you know what? Like looking back, I wasn't too old, and I probably did feel a little bit. I mean, in the dressing room, I wasn't a huge character. I was always kind of a little bit, sit on the fence, kind of trying to please everybody and not rile and give my opinion. And coming into a team like Leeds with all them big players' personalities, you kind of just go along with the flow and work hard, and you kind of get your gratitude from everyone else for doing it right in training and working hard. And that was me, really. I remember getting a knee injury a couple of days before the last few. Actually had to have an operation, so it was probably a good time that I had a little knee up. Missed the last 2 games of the season. I was ready for the start of pre-season. So I can remember sitting in the stands watching the game with my crutches because I just had operation and knowing that it had gone sour. And I can just remember, I can see it now, sitting in the stand just above the dugout, just above where you run out for the tunnel, and it was just a horrible, horrible atmosphere. Obviously, it was confirmed. Everyone knew we were going to get relegated when it was confirmed that day. And going back down to the change room, I think there was a little bit of unrest, definitely in the changing room. And it's always going to be, no one's going to be happy getting relegated, are they? No one's going to be like, oh, we've done well here, lads. Well done. Not going to happen. So management, players, blaming each other. And obviously there was a bit of a clear out in that summer, which needed. It was needed. And
yeah, I think it was really, I mean, as from a fan's perspective as well, I think it just was. I mean, you say there was a bit of unrest. Can you remember what Wise said to the group of lads, to the players after that game in the tunnel at Ipswich? Sorry,
do you know what? Honestly, I'm not just sitting on the fence again, but I can't really picture what was said in there after that game.
Yeah.
I just know, I'd be making it up if I was saying he was going around blaming people doing this and the other. I imagine he did do.
Yeah.
I imagine I might have been about 10 minutes late getting down to the dressing room, to be fair. That's probably why I don't remember being, hobbling around on crutches and being in the top of the stand till the end. But, it's just like I say, it would have been horrible, horrible atmosphere for all players, all fans, everybody. Nobody tries not to win. And then I think as well, maybe stories come out that there might have been people not pulling in the right direction during that season as well, and little stories that people have told that, again, you half hear about and you don't know the ins and the truths about it. So, I'm sure all the fans just hate thinking about that season when you went down.
It was not a very pleasant season, and like you say, that Ipswich one, the atmosphere there was really, really quite toxic, wasn't it? But we're in a better place now, obviously now. But you say that the clear out was needed and everything in that pre-season after we got relegated. Did it ever cross your mind, Matt, to leave Leeds? Because obviously we'd gone down a division. There was all sorts of issues with just being deducted the points as well. Did it ever cross your mind?
Honestly, it didn't. I mean, I think for me to play for a club like Leeds was, a big achievement for myself as well. So to think that I could carry on playing, albeit, with all the financial difficulties that the club went through over that summer, and we didn't have a contract going into pre-season. We were playing pre-season hoping that the club would get it sorted and they'd be able to give the contracts out. So essentially, I was playing, as I probably spoke about, we were playing for free, really, hoping that we were going to get the contract sorted. And just that thought of carrying on playing for Leeds, knowing that, new players were coming in, players that were probably more suited to working hard as a team, more League One style players, I suppose, looking to get up to the Championship. It was never crossing my mind to think that I needed to leave and go anywhere else. I just wanted it all to get sorted out, to get the first game underway, and just to kind of all work in the right direction. And yeah, it did. It started off really well for us. We had a good pre-season though. I can still remember that, going away, working hard. I can remember vividly all of the work that, the graft that we put in on the training ground every day. And even to the point now, I kind of replicate it with some of, like I say, the college teams that I help coach. Kind of similar ideas to how we did it, dumbed down a little bit for college students, but yeah, it was a real good start to the season, but it was well deserved.
It was. I mean, we started it brilliantly. I'll come on to that in just a second, Matt, because obviously you were heavily involved in that first game. But I mean, what do you put it down to then? That sort of good feeling from the sort of sour, the toxic feeling of the end of the season before, going into sort of a new season, new division. What do you kind of put the sort of good start, the good feeling down to? What was it in particular that sort of Dennis Wise and Gus Poyet, what did they sort of implement into the squad that made it such a good place to be?
Do you know what, George? There's a couple of things that happen. I mean, any first start of the season, you go away, you've had a break, you come back, it's a clean slate. You've got to believe that it's going to be your season. You got it. There's no other way. I'm sure there's no football club, no footballer that come back after a pre-season break and think, do you know what, it's still lingering from last year. I'm very certain, unless somebody's, harbouring a big grudge and they've not got rid of, players to get rid of that vibe, any pro is going to be all excited for the season. So that was one of the main, obviously. It's done, it's dusted, it's gone out, it's out of the way. Secondly, we worked really, really hard in pre-season, so we knew that we'd prepared right. With the new players, we had a couple of old pros in there, Andy Hughes, Alan Thompson that I can remember, Andre Flo coming a little bit later, than good quality pros that, did things right. They worked really hard, they had a good attitude, they looked after the younger players, some players to look up to, and we had a good team morale, a really good team morale at that time, and pre-season went really well. That being said, results are massive. Yeah. So I can remember the first game, which you say we're just going to touch on. We're 1-0 down at half time. I can remember we got absolutely ran around as well. And if that 1-0 would have gone into 2-0, 3-0, and we'd have lost that game, it would have been I know it would have been a totally different story. It would have been up against it, would have been uptight with each other. It might not have been that easy, but obviously, that we turned that game around, and then it just confidence breeds more confidence, and it became easy then. So, a number of factors that all linked in together, I think. And yeah, I suppose the start of the season was really good, and especially to play in and be around.
It was excellent. It was just it couldn't have been better start. After that end to the season, starting I think we got 7 in a row, Matt. 7 wins in a row. Obviously, Whitechapel minus 15. But I'll go back to that Tranmere game. I mean, obviously, like you say, obviously you start. There's a group of players who have never really played together before. Obviously, you'd have the pre-season. And there's a lot of new players coming though in that season. And we were 1-0 down. What can you remember? What was the difference between going in? obviously 1-0 down at half time. But if it was the season before, maybe we might have lost it. What was the difference in that one game?
Like, I think we just got that rub. A couple of things. We've got the rub of the green and the chances fell to us. I think they even had one offside. They scored again and it was offside.
Yeah.
So we got a little bit of luck. We had two lads that were playing up front, Jermaine and Trez at the time. They could like, you know, put nightmares in any centre half. So we knew that we had them players and that quality up front that could get us a goal. I honestly believe out of all of the games that we played at the beginning of that season, we went into every single game thinking we were going to win. We obviously went into that one thinking we were going to beat Tranmere. We'd gone down. We're Leeds United. We shouldn't be in this league. And we did. We got that first 45 minutes, we got a real big eye opener. That league was tough. And we all found out that playing in that league, it was probably, for the majority of us, the first time we played in League One. And it was tough. It was very physical, very quick. You never got a bit of respite. And I think it was just that eye-opener for that first 45 minutes. We had 15 minutes to regroup. And going out in the second half, again, it could have gone either way, but it didn't. We got lucky. And then I think just following that game, that's when it started to build, and we probably got more comfortable playing with each other, built them relationships in the team. From memory, I think we kept the same starting 11 quite regularly as well. So, we became a lot familiar with each other and started to enjoy playing as well.
Do you think it was a little bit sort of naivety or maybe overconfidence, Matt, in the first sort of game of that league? Like you say, not many of you have played in League One before. Maybe you kind of thought, oh, well, we can just go and play and turn up. Was there that kind of mentality maybe in the...
Well, I think, like I say, we were a good bunch of lads, so we would never have gone into it expecting to win. We weren't that kind of group. It was probably pure naivety, pure not knowing what we were going to expect. I still feel now, the lower you go down in the leagues, the intensity gets higher and higher, and the battle is harder. Even if you go down, I went and played some non-league football at the end of my career as well, and it is, the quality obviously goes down. You don't have them players that can change a game just like that and create something out of nothing, and the sharpness around the area will slowly go down, and that's what makes the best players the best players. They can, score a goal with a sniff of a chance. But it probably was just one of them things where we just got caught unaware, and Tranmere were, they're flying out the blocks as well at the time. So, yeah, we're a decent bunch of lads. We would never have had the wrong attitude. I'd never say that about that team at the time.
It was for me, it was such a great side. It's one that I really remember. And what was it? Obviously, you got the equaliser that day, didn't you, against Tranmere? I mean, what was that like, scoring in the first game? Obviously, our first goal of the season. What can you remember about that goal? Can you remember it at all?
Can remember. That one's probably my favourite goal I ever scored in my whole career. Like, it was a set piece that we'd worked on the training pitch. It was in front of all of the Leeds fans. Like, I don't know how many thousand fans we got in Tranmere that day, but just everything about it was just one of them, real fond memories, and something that, I think back now and just smile about now and again if we're talking about Leeds and scoring goals. So yeah, it was good. And apparently I've heard there was a bit of trouble in the stands as well at half time, wasn't there?
Oh, I don't know actually about that. I wasn't actually at that game, so I'm not quite sure, but it was...
rumours.
I think maybe from a fan's point of view, Matt, I think obviously going down a division and we were 1-0 down at half time, there was probably there was a bit of an expectancy from the fans that we would go and win that game. So I guess maybe the fans might have been a little bit unhappy that...
I think, no. I was speaking to a few people since, like, over the years. Like, I hear that you had half of the fans just wanting to, encourage the team. Look, it started the season with only 1-0 down, have the positive mentality. And then you had the other half of the fans lingering from the previous season, angry. And I think there was a bit of fighting in the stand at half time, actually. Yeah, so it was actually quite a pivotal moment on the pitch and off the pitch as well, which brought a lot of people closer together and started to believe that, you know what, we can bounce straight back up.
Yeah, I mean, I think after that game, I mean, obviously Candor got the winner. That was great. You know, just stooping low and editing it in, and that was great. I mean, obviously that gave you, like you say, big confidence to go on, and we wiped out that minus points deduction straight away. I mean, what do you remember about that Hartlepool game, Matt? Can you remember anything that brought us to 0 points?
The hope was it? Do we win 4 something? Was it? Have I got that wrong?
We won 7. We won 7 in a row altogether. The fifth win took us to 0 points.
What was the score in that one?
It was 2-0 Hartlepool.
2-0.
Yeah.
I can't remember that actual game, but I do remember that. Yeah, just funnily enough, I remember a game away at maybe it was later in the season. I swear it was away at Hartlepool. Maybe Carlisle away. That was the one we lost, I think, actually.
Yeah, Carlisle were up there with us, weren't they, at the time?
That's right, yeah. I remember playing at home against Swansea, and they were another team up the top, and we beat them 2-0, I think. Yeah. I remember playing at home, probably first home game of the season, winning 4-1. I think Rui scored a goal. I think Tondre Flo come off the bench and scoring a goal. And I just remember that, do you know what, going into every game feeling like we're going to win. Yeah. We had, you know, hard workers in midfield. We had flair up front. We had creativity out wide. We had a decent back four that were working together. My centre-back partner was getting me out of all kinds of trouble being as quick as he was. So, and I'd just say to him, do you know what, if the ball's in there, I'll try and edit it. And if I don't, you can sweep up. So it was a good little partnership, to be fair.
Was it Rui that? Was it Rui Marquez that?
Yeah. He was
great.
Really good player, in my opinion, yeah.
Who was, going on to like the squad, Matt, who did you pal around with in that team? And, you know, say you had a day off or something round Leeds, who would you be calling on to kind of hang about with?
At the time, I joined on loan at the same, well, he'd already joined a couple of months before, but Ian Westlake was living really close to where I was in the hotel, and I eventually got a place where I started to rent. So we became quite pally, both like playing golf, both like just similar things off the pitch. And we became, and we still are really, we became quite close, quite good friends. Johnny Howson, Ben Parker were just coming through the squad at the time as well. So we were quite friendly with them guys as well. Still speak to Ben and Johnny a little bit now. So I mean, like I say, Seb was a nice lad. He lived up the road in Wetherby. I was just in Wetherby as well. So there's a lot of us that would hang around. And if there was ever something on socially, then there was a good group that used to go out and socialise with each other as well. So, like I say, it was just nice. At that time, it was a nice place because we were winning to go and play football and go into training.
That's it. You want to be around it, don't you? Then you want to be around because you're winning. You know, it's a good sort of feeling. You want to be around the guys that you're playing with as well. So that's nice to have that kind of togetherness in the team as well, going out, socialising with each other, you know, as well as playing. Sometimes, I guess, at some clubs, do you get that at all with some clubs you've been at where it's a bit separate?
Some of them you do. I suppose it is hard because I've been at a few clubs where you do get that real good togetherness. It's probably happened 4 or 5 times at certain points where I think, do you know what? They were a decent bunch of lads. Everyone really liked being around each other. Yeah, there was that friendly banter. It was never horrible, never too much. And it can happen at all levels. Like I played non-league right at the end then I started to retire, but I played for Harrogate Railway, and they were in Step 8 at the time. Probably one of the best teams for morale I've ever played in, and we overachieved at the time at that level. So, team morale, team dynamics, they're huge, I think, in football and team sports. And if you do get a real good bunch that enjoy each other's company and they, want to work for each other, it goes such a long way.
Absolutely, I agree. If you're all working towards the same thing, you're enjoying each other's company and you get on with everybody, it really creates a good feeling and real good. I mean, it showed on the pitch, to be fair. I mean, like you say, we were storming it, really. I mean, and you were a mainstay in the side, weren't you, Matt? But then, obviously, unexpectedly, Wise goes. I mean, what are your thoughts when he goes? I mean, did he speak to the squad about it, or what? How did that come about?
Do you know what? I just feel like, and I half mentioned it earlier, I think the two of them together were a good partnership.
Yeah.
So Gus and Wisey were they were chalk and cheese characters, but they obviously knew each other well from when they played together at Chelsea. And maybe I don't know, but maybe Gus kept Dennis a little bit calmer in certain situations. Maybe he had this influence over it. Obviously, he's his own man, Wisey is, and what he was quite clearly the boss. But them as a partnership, and I think that probably management, you get all these great managers, but the number twos probably make them the manager they are. And I feel like when he left, it started just to go a little bit sour and the cracks started to appear. And I can't quite remember how long we played by just Dennis and no Gus around. But when Dennis left, I think it was probably just that time where he had an opportunity. Did he go to Newcastle? I think in some kind of sporting managing role. So he probably just thought, do you know what? I'm not enjoying it as much without Gus around, because Gus went on to Spurs and I think he got the head coach role there. I mean, all things come to an end in football, don't they? Unless you're Alex Ferguson and you're at Man U for God knows how many years, or Arsene Wenger. Most things come to an end, and it only takes 5 bad results, doesn't it, in the game of football for someone to get the sack. And it was just that at that time, that was just what happened. It was their time to go, and then a new manager comes in and he wants to implement his own players, his own thoughts, his own tactics. So that's what it is. You just got to know that, a new manager comes in. Does he like me? No. All right, I might move on.
Well, that's it. I suppose, like you say, that's kind of football, isn't it? Like you say, nothing kind of lasts forever, does it? You've got to move on if you can't quite see your game time, or for whatever reason it kind of goes a different way. So what were the feeling when he obviously left, Matt, amongst the squad? Were you disappointed to see him go so kind of suddenly?
I think we all obviously knew that we had something going on. From what I can remember, I feel like we knew that the wheels had slightly come off. I can't remember the results, how they went. I can remember losing away at Swansea in a game, and he lost his head a little bit in that game. We probably felt like, do you know what? That wouldn't have been the case if Gus and Wisey were together. He might have had a different approach to it, or we might have had a different feel. So it was. I'd like to say it wasn't really a surprise that he left. But on the flip side, we're in a real good position still to go up. We still had the same players there, didn't we? So it would have just been, look, this is what happens. Again, it's what happens in football. People change, people move on. And obviously the calibre of the manager that was coming in and where he's played before, we thought, do you know what? Why can we not go on and win?
Well, that's it. I think that was it. We're in a good position, and just keep it going. I mean, obviously, like I say, Gary Matt came in, Gary McAllister. And then what kind of changed for you when Gary McAllister came in, Matt? Did you see a change did he come and tell you that you weren't going to be part of his plans, or what kind of happened with him?
It was a funny one, really, because I kind of, even though I hadn't played with him or anything, he used to manage the reserves at Coventry when I was in the reserves at Leicester. And he was actually player manager. So I feel like we played against Coventry quite a lot as reserves and youth team players. So I kind of knew I knew him, and I feel like he knew me a little bit. So we had that kind of like just something that we kind of half knew each other. So him coming in, I thought, do you know what, this could be decent. I think from memory, he had a chat with me, which he probably did with all the players, like a one-on-one chat. And I thought, do you know what, he's a really nice bloke. Seems quite, knows what he wants. He changed his style of play a little bit. It was more about, probably like how Leeds play now, trying to get the ball on the floor and pass the ball and keep the ball. And it definitely wasn't as direct. And it's a funny one, really, because I played the first game. He come in, we played, I think it was, again, home to Tranmere from memory. And I started the game, even at half-time. I think we were drawing 0-0 at half-time. He came in and he singled me out to be the best player in the team.
Oh,
I thought, tell you what, this is going all right here.
yeah.
And I think going out in the second, I must have had the worst 45 minutes of my career, because I went out second half. I know I did make a mistake. We conceded a goal, or I made a half a mistake. We conceded a goal. We lost 2-0, and I never played again. So it was just one of, I couldn't get my head around it, really. Like, obviously you accept it. It's what football is. And again, I got lucky with a move to Colchester, who were in the Championship at the time. But it was a little bit of a strange one when he kind of seemed like he liked me. Everything seemed like I could be one of the players that he works with. And then from 45 minutes into the end of the game, I was out the door.
What was that though? What was that like though, Matt? Did he come and say to you after that, or in the months that followed? Because did you sign for Colchester in March? Was it March time?
I can't remember. It must have been roughly March time, but it would have been exactly the same scenario, like I say, that happened to me at Coventry with Mickey Adams. It would have been pulled into the office. Look, I need to get players out to get my players in. We want to get you off the wage bill so I can use my wages somewhere else. I've got Colchester, they want you. What do you think? And then you just know the writing's on the wall, really, for you at the club. So you're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
What was it like going to Colchester, Matt? Because obviously, like say, they were the same division as Leeds, and did you have any problems going there?
They were the division above. They were still in the Championship then, and we were obviously in League One.
Yeah, of course.
To be fair, Colchester had just had a really decent season. They finished 8th in the Championship. They nearly got into the playoffs to go to the Premier League. They had Jamie Cureton, Chris Ulumo, Richard Garcia were there, and they lost all of them players after finishing 8th. They obviously got rid of all of these players. They all moved on. Colchester, obviously, a really small club. But then they brought in Teddy Sheringham, was playing at Colchester at the time as well. So they had, they brought in some decent players as well. So going up there, down there, I thought, do you know what? My time's done at Leeds. It's a big move again. Drives 4-hour drive away, so it wasn't just around the corner. I thought this could work. Really, this could work. And to be fair, it was a bit of a dodgy start for me at Colchester, up and down. But the manager changed. But I eventually stayed there for 6 years, about 6 seasons. So I have fond memories of there as well.
Good, because it just kind of. Did you know when he said? Obviously it was initial loan, Matt. Did you realise that your time was kind of done at Leeds?
Yeah.
When it was a loan spell.
Yeah. It's even though it's a loan spell, it's like you're going on loan. Yeah. It's like a trial, really. If you do all right, there'll be a deal at the end of it. I think with both of the clubs that are, moving to Leeds and then Colchester, that if you do all right, you'll stay there. If you're successful, they'll want to keep you generally. So I just thought, do you know what? It's just, again, I'm probably in my mid to late 20s at the time. Another opportunity. They're in a decent league. I'd moved up again into the Championship and playing up there. I was really happy at the time, even though they're a totally different club to Leeds, chalk and cheese, really. Small family club, overachieving at the time. But it was just another good opportunity, really, for me to carry on. And every season you're a pro footballer, you just got to be happy, haven't you?
That's it. I mean, playing football for a living, fantastic, isn't it? That's a dream sort of scenario.
Yeah, most players you kind of listen to. I started listening to there's another podcast that I've just listened to 5 or 6 episodes. That they have a footballer on, and so I've just picked a few of the lads that I used to play with, and I listened to Robbie Blake's. He spoke. Have you spoken to him at all?
No, I haven't. I'd like to speak to him actually, but
obviously he's got loads of stories. He's really good at telling the story. But I think even the main thing that he said, and he had a tremendous career. He played so high up. He got big money moves. But he just, again, he said he was so humble to play at a top level for that long, and you probably do take it for granted a little bit at the time. But looking back, it's it's a wonderful kind of like career to have, albeit a short career. And as long as, which I think I did, you take it, that you're lucky to do it, and you have to work hard and try and prove yourself. It's all these lads now that are moving in, through the ranks and getting into top class teams like Leeds at the minute. Then they're very lucky.
Yeah, well, that's it, Matt. I mean, it's a fantastic, it's a dream sort of job, really, for a lot of people. I mean, how do you sort of sum up your time with Leeds, Matt? I know you're still involved, which I'll just ask you about next sort of question, but how do you sort of sum up your playing time with Leeds?
I feel like it was a privilege to play for such a big club. So happy that I did get to experience it, experience the fan base, experience the facility, the team, playing at Ellen Road, a number of times. And you do forget, like I say, you forget the bad times, and you remember the better times and the wins and the goals that you score. And yeah, I do have massive fond memories of Leeds. I do say that, like, I am a Leicester born and bred, so I'm a Leicester fan, but Leeds are definitely my number 2 team. And I promise I'm not saying that just because I'm speaking to you.
No worries, right. Yeah, that's really good, because you're obviously still involved with Leeds, aren't you, as well? So what is your role there now then?
So I actually did stay up and I lived up until a year or so ago. I did live up in Yorkshire, close to where Thorpe Arch training ground was. So I stayed up in the area. I went into education, like I say, worked as a sports lecturer at a college at Askham Bryan, just outside of York. Yeah. And Leeds, they have created a Leeds United Sports College in the last couple of years. So my job up in York, we had a link with the Leeds United Sports College, like a partnership, as you could say. And then in the last year, I transferred over to work for Leeds United Sports College. So I'm actually based now. I live back home in Leicester. I'm based in Nottingham. So we have a cohort of students in Nottingham that are Leeds United Sports College students, train and do the education. So I teach them, I train them. We play in a decent league, a national league. So I'm still an employee of Leeds United at the minute, which I'm really enjoying. Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's really good. It's good that players that have played for the club eventually have roles and still are involved with them. It's great to see that players still have that affiliation towards Leeds United, which is really good.
Nice. When I kind of met the bosses, all the meetings were back in Ellen Road, so going over there and having a look around and seeing how it's changed, it's nostalgic, isn't it? It's nice. It's nice to think about.
It is. It's nice to reminisce, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So going on then, Matt, we'll speak about your time with Leicester. So obviously you are, like you say, you're a Leicester boy and you're Leicester born and bred, aren't you, really? And you came through the academy at Leicester. What was it like, sort of making your debut for your boyhood club in the Premier League as well? So you've got Premier League experience. What can you remember about your debut? Was it Newcastle?
No, my debut was at Charlton. Honestly, George, it was like, it is literally, that's the dream come true. If you watch your hometown club as a kid, you go through the academy, you get your chance to, do you know what, let alone make it into the youth team, then you break into the reserve team, and then you get a chance to play in the first team. I'm not saying that I was a Premier League standard player, but I got lucky that the team was in the Premier League. The first team were in the Premier League at the time. I got lucky a number of times, I think, over the course of my youth team days, where you get certain managers that really like you, then they'll push you on, and yeah, honestly, it was absolutely amazing going to play for your hometown a hometown club in front of all your friends and family, and I mean, yeah, it's just something that I can take with me still, and have again real fond memories of the time that I spent at the club. So many good players around at the time when I was making my way into the first team at Leicester. It was nice and easy to slot in because you had decent players around you helping you along the way. And yeah, as a young lad, and there was a few of us from my time there. It was Leicester was a team where you had that opportunity. I know it was 20 odd years ago, so there was more opportunity for young players, but one or two of us got into the first team at the time, so it was nice to get that opportunity where probably you wouldn't do it at other clubs as well.
That's it. I mean, what do you remember about that? About your debut? You say it's Charlton that you were coming up against. What do you remember about that, and who were you up against on? Who was on the opposition side, Matt? These players that you probably looked up at and thought, wow, the Premier League players, and suddenly you're playing on the same pitch.
Just one of them ones where Peter Taylor was a manager at the time, and he was coming under a lot of pressure. So it was probably his last roll of the dice just to put a young lad in the team. And he actually did. We lost the game, and he did get sacked after the game.
Oh, nice.
So I will. You know what? It was nice for him to give a couple of young lads the opportunity to go in the team. We played away. I knew that I was playing up against Sean Bartlett, and there was a lad called Jonathan Johansson. They were both playing up front at the time. Two really big centre forwards, and I can remember thinking, do you know what? When you're defending a goal kick and the goalie kicks it, and it's generally the centre half and the centre forward going up to head the ball. I looked at Sean Bartlett and thought, how the hell do you jump that high? Like, it absolutely blew my mind how he could time it and leap so high. I had no chance whatsoever. So yeah, do you know what? I actually thought I did all right. It was a bit of an eye opener. Certain little things of, like I say, the sharpness and how players are at that level, because I'd never played, obviously, at that level. I played in the reserves against decent footballers when I was, coming through. I remember playing at Chelsea once, and Gianluca Vialli was playing up front against me in the reserves, and I thought, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But reserve football at the time, they're probably taking it easy coming back from injuries. So
yeah,
to play, first team football, I did all right in the game. I come off injured with 10 minutes to go. I got a gash on my head, so I had to go off, and there was blood everywhere. But we were 2-0 down by that time, and we lost the game. But it was a good, it was a decent first kind of game for me.
Yeah, because you went on to play just the 3 times, didn't you, in that breakout season for you? And then as you gradually went on, you played more and more. You started to get more and more game time. What was your kind of favourite kind of ground that you played at, Matt, in the Premier League? Because obviously that last season, you played in like the likes of Old Trafford, you played at Highbury against Arsenal. So where was what was your favourite kind of ground that you played at?
Well, we played that season. It was when Arsenal became the Invincibles, and we played them at Highbury the very last game. So we were the last team to try and take that title away from them. And believe it or not, we were 1-0 up at half time going into the break. They won 2-1 eventually. So just to be around kind of that history making at the time. And I got Bergkamp's shirt after the game, so I've still got that shirt with me now when he became an Invincible. So just like little memories like that, where they're nice to take away. I can remember playing, obviously, not as good a ground as Highbury, but I played in a game at Birmingham where, I don't know if you can remember, Leicester had a little bit of an issue when we went away once to La Manga.
Yeah.
Anything ring a bell?
I do remember that.
Yeah, we ended up going away on a mid-season tour, and we were minus 10 players coming home because 10 of them had to go to prison for a couple of days. So, it,
First team players as well.
yeah.
Oh wow.
I won't go into what happened too much, but we come back early from that trip. Seven of them got released within a day. 3 of them stayed in for about 2 weeks, to be fair, until until it got found out that there were, it was all made up what was going on. But the first game back after that, we had a game at Birmingham away from home, and we won that 1-0. And again, just the togetherness of the team, because we knew, there's a couple of lads away still in prison over in Spain. That was a real good memory and a nice game to reminisce about.
Well, that's good, because obviously, like you say, that was you played at Iberville, that was the Invincible season. That was unfortunately the same season as both Leeds and Leicester got relegated, didn't they? So, what was again the feeling, in that squad in the time that you obviously knew that you were kind of getting relegated? Because we all ended up on the same amount of points, didn't we, Matt? Leeds, Leicester, and Wolves. How was that feeling of, again, like I said, relegation, which you touched on before?
Do you know what? It was totally different with Leicester. Leicester were a yo-yo team at the time. Like my first season I played, my debut was in the Premier League, but we got relegated. Then we played in the Championship. We got promoted. Then we got relegated again. So Leicester, there was no expectancy really at Leicester too much at the time. We were doing well and over. I'd say we were overachieving, but we had when I was in the youth team, we had a period of time at the club where Martin O'Neill was in charge, and we were consistently finishing 10th mid-table in the Premier League. And when the players like Neil Lennon, Robbie Savage, Matt Elliott, Jerry Taggart, to name a few, Muzzy as it was coming through, Emil Heskey was playing for the club. So Leicester had a real overachieving at the time, an overachieving period. So when that kind of Martin O'Neill left and that kind of era of player kind of retired or moved on, it was kind of like, well, we're doing well being a Premier League team, and we don't want to get relegated. But again, I was only a young lad, and just to be part of a team and playing in the team, I was over the moon with. Probably not in the kind of in the know about the logistics and the politics of the club as much, because you're a young lad and you're just going with the flow. But it's never a nice feeling. Never a nice feeling going down. But then on the flip side, when you get promoted, it's amazing.
Yeah, so you were obviously part of that promotion season, then obviously got relegated, then promoted. Again, what was that like, Matt, getting promotion and back into the Premier League? How can you remember the night, that you got confirmed, and what happened there,
Do you know what? Looking back, I know that I played about 30 odd games in that season when we got promoted. I know that, again, we still had really good players in the team. So I was never thinking that I was first choice or I was going to get in the team week in, week out. So kind of everything for me being, late teenager, early 20s was a bonus when I was playing. When we get promoted, like I think us and Portsmouth got promoted at the time, and it wasn't one of them ones where it went to the wire and you had that big sense of relief. I think we knew we were going to get promoted a number of games before the end of the season. I think we did come second, but from memory, it was always quite an easy second, like in comparison to third. So it wasn't that buzz of winning it. Yeah. You got promoted. You knew you were going to get there eventually. Yeah. But again, thinking that you're a young lad and you've moved up again and you're playing for your boyhood team and you've moved up to the Prem, and hopefully you get a little bit of a chance there. And I didn't play a lot again the year after, probably only a handful of games, 15 or so. But it was nice to get that opportunity.
Was the season you came up again, that was the 03-04 season, Matt. So
that would have been when Leeds,
Yeah, you played 15 times in the Premier League, which is a good amount, really, isn't it, for a young player?
like I say, I think being lucky enough to be at a team that were in the Premier League at the time, I've overachieved for my ability to play at that level. So I just took it as I could at the time. Obviously, I didn't. I'm saying that looking back now, knowing where kind of the level that I ended up at. But at the time, it was just you're just on a cloud nine, really. You're just taking everything as it comes, and now looking back, it's just something that you can be quite fond of and have the memories of playing against, world class players and thinking back to think, do you know what? I did all right rubbing shoulders with a couple of them.
Yeah, Premier League player, man. It's pretty impressive, really. Who was the best player you came up against because it was a kind of golden era, really, of Premier League.
I was lucky enough to play. I played at Man U when Beckham and Ronaldo played. He was in his first season there. Henry and Bergkamp were playing against me at Arsenal.
Yeah.
Gerrard at Liverpool. Thinking back though, the toughest one was, and I'm not saying it. It was when I played at Leeds in that game. I think you guys won 3-2, and it was Alan Smith and Viduka played up front, and them two. Like I say, the lower you go down in the leagues, the more physical it gets. But them two didn't play by that book. They were bullying me everywhere. They were just on a different level. So yeah, it was that game was a tough one. But it was just like I say, it was just. I feel lucky to have been able to say that that's what I used to do, and I could do it at that level for a short amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's a great, like you say, great thing to look back on, and those memories of playing against that sort of caliber of player. I mean, who'd have thought? Did you ever think? What were your first thoughts of Ellen Road? And the fans there, because obviously years later he ended up playing. What do you remember that game at Ellen Road in particular in terms of the fan and playing at Ellen Road?
Like I say, that was again. It was kind of the area when all these new stadiums were cropping up left, right, and centre. Yeah. So just to play, a ground like I remember playing at Sheffield at Hillsborough a few times. That was nuts, really good. Ellen Road, another great ground. I mean, Leicester when they used to play at Filbert Street had a cracking atmosphere as well. So these old stadiums, it was a different vibe and a different feeling. The crowd seem on top of you, and it seems a lot louder. So going over to Leeds again, like hearing how loud they sing the songs and get behind the team, it was just an absolute. It was a good game. It was a 5-goal thriller. I can remember as well. I think we went 2-0 down. We might have got it back to 2-2 as well, and then you guys scored to win 3-2 late on in the game. I think it Michael Dubry, if I can remember.
Yeah, it was. I think, but you did beat us 4-0. I think the very early on in that season in the reverse game. Obviously, unfortunately, we both went down, and obviously then you moved on to Coventry, didn't you? From after that season, didn't you? So we didn't meet you again in Leeds in that season. But who was the best player? Who was the you say you got Bergkamp's shirt, Matt. Have you got any other players' shirts? Do you collect them at all from?
No, I mean, like I got a couple when I played against a couple of the decent players. I got an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer shirt, which he's obviously gone on to be manager, so that was a decent one. Got Gareth Barry's shirt. When I played, he was at Aston Villa at the time. He went on to do something decent. So I got a couple. I got Emile Heskey's Liverpool shirt when I played against him as well. So that was nice because he was a Leicester lad as well. We used to play, albeit he was a couple of years older, used to play at the same Sunday League team together. So I got a few nice ones. And then when you move down the leagues, you just kind of pick your friends and you kind of swap shirts with your friends at the end of the season. So, I've got one of Johnny's shirts somewhere and Ian Westlake's shirts and yeah, so you do pick a few little bits. I've got a little box full of them somewhere in the
Yeah,
house. So.
that's cool. That must be something again. A nice little
Do you know what?
memento in it.
It is, but I used to. There was a point where I used to live just next to the college where I worked at Askham Bryan. So we used to, with my students there, we used to play five-a-side in the football gym, and all the lads and the girls that were on my course, they used to be like, "Oh, go and get your shirts for us." So I used to go back to my house, get this box of shirts, hand them out, and they're all playing five-a-side in the gym at the college. Someone was Dennis Bergkamp, someone was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer up front.
Oh, it's great, though. It's really
yeah, they loved it. They did.
How would you?
Make sure you put it back in the box.
That's it. Don't go home with it. Yeah. Oh, great stuff. So, how would you sort of sum up again with your time with Leicester, Matt? You know, overall, obviously your boyhood lad, like we say, and you know, what was it like for you to play for Leicester City?
Absolutely nuts. Again, like that is the dream when you're that young, and then you're going through, you know, under 12s, 13s, 14s to get anywhere near. Well, I suppose the dream first is to try and make it into the youth team and do it full time. But then your next goal is to try and get a full time contract, a pro contract. Then you're trying to get into the reserves, you're marking the reserves. So just to go each little step and along the way, do it really slowly. It was just something, again, that I just feel like I was lucky to be able to do. Enjoyed every single minute of it there. Yeah, there are ups and downs, and you can remember getting, you know, bollockings off this manager here and praise off that manager there. And it's a bit of a roller coaster, you know, playing professionally. It's not all roses like everyone might think it is. There's, you know, a lot of sacrifices you have to make, a lot of things that you shouldn't do. I know now social media is about, even there's more scrutiny on players now, and they can't get away with anything. But I suppose, like, looking back, it was still in the era where, and again, Leicester was an era, especially Martin O'Neill, Mickey Adams, where, you know, he didn't mind what the pros did. They could go out and, you know, have beers at the weekend whenever they want, as long as they were training right and they were going to win on a Saturday. He did not care what they used to do. I remember going into the training ground at Leicester, and there was a smoker's toilet. There was like loads of packs of cigarettes in there, and there was probably a massive handful of players that used to go in and smoke regularly. But that's the kind of the era it was.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's completely changed, hasn't it? Like you say, with social media, has just kind of put everything under every little thing that any player does is scrutinised to the last little bit, which is, yeah, it's just the way it's gone. But it's fascinating to see, because to hear that, because that was only what 20 years ago, about that. You know, it's changed so much, hasn't it, really? But I won't ask you who was regularly in there. You know, that would be.
Well, it's probably half of the team. Like, it was probably easier to say who wasn't in there.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, they just seem like they have to be more robotic now, don't they? They have to say the right things on camera. I know they're not going to be like that kind of in person, and they're going to have their, you know, everyone's going to, you know, the football lads.
Yeah,
they're going to have all different personalities and whatnot, but just in front of the camera and how they have to act, it's just a lot different now. It's harder for their personalities to come out, and when you do get players that come out with personality, then, you know, they might rub people up the wrong way, and not everyone likes it. So it's a tough one. It is tough now, but yeah, thinking back and looking back, it was probably a nice era to play in, where you could, you know, enjoy yourself and kind of live the life as a footballer, but also have a little bit of life as well yourself.
That's it. Yeah, it's not completely all just train, obviously, hard as you can. You can't do this, you can't do that. You know, so I imagine that's what it is quite like nowadays. But like you said,
I mean, like,
a leeway.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't do certain things, and, you know, since I've finished playing, I've been able to go skiing. Couldn't go skiing, could you? When you were playing football, it weren't allowed. It went in your contract. But I've done that a few times now, and I've enjoyed that. So there are, you know, there's a few like nice things. I get Christmas at home now. Yeah. I get my weekends at home now. I can do what I want at the weekend. So, you know what? It's, you know, like I say, it's a massive it is a big sacrifice. Obviously, anyone would make that sacrifice if they had that choice and that chance. But you know, the lads that do play, it is tough, and especially when they've got the pressure of the media, they've got the pressure of the managers, they've got the pressure of the fans, they've got pressure of even getting a contract. If you're playing lower league, getting your contract so you've got an income for the next year. Everyone probably looks at these top Premier League players and internationals that are getting millions and millions and millions, which is a different level completely. But you know, there are a lot of players that are scraping around still trying to make a living. So yeah, just to play at a decent level, I do feel really privileged and lucky to have done it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like we say, it's a dream job for many people. But like you say, it isn't quite all rosy in the garden all the time. There are sacrifices that have to be made, you know, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, going back into Leicester for a moment, Matt, do you still keep in touch with any of the lads that you played with there in Leicester?
Touch with the lads that I come through the youth team with, that then went on to kind of play a little bit here and there. Some of them didn't, but I think they're probably your best mates that you make when you're younger. Yeah, there's the odd one or two that I still speak to now and again over social media and whatnot. But it's and especially during lockdown when you're on your phone a little bit more and speaking to your mates. But it's one of them ones where, like, how many people do you speak to from primary school and high school now? Like,
yeah, well, that's it.
Some people speak to loads, some people don't. Like,
exactly. You don't. You know, it's a long time ago, that, isn't it? Really. So you don't keep in touch with so many people.
You move on, don't you? And with a footballer, you move around the country so much that you can be so close. Like I say, I was really close with Ian Westlake at Leeds, but now he lives down the other end of the country, down south, and I'm in Leicester, and we don't get a chance to see each other very often. So it's just one of them ones where you could always pick the phone up to a bunch of lads and have a chat with about anything really, but you just don't get to see them all the time.
Yeah, that's it though. It's nice to, like you say, keep in touch with a few lads and reminisce about times that you've had, and that's really nice. So actually going on to the game then, obviously as we're recording it, with both teams will still need to play another game each. But how do you see this sort of game going, Matt? Obviously the reverse one, Leicester had quite a comfortable win in the end and are doing very well at the top. Well, the top of the league at the moment, aren't they, Leicester? As we're recording,
yeah, they certainly are. Yeah,
it was 2-0, wasn't it, last night again, as we're recording, against Chelsea.
Really strong at the minute. Obviously, I'm following them and I want them to do well. I think Brendan Rodgers has got a real good balance of players in the team. He's obviously, and I think a huge part of it is still having a fully fit Jamie Vardy up front. Even though he's 34 years old, he's still got the pace. He's still going to terrorise the defenders, and they will drop off 1 or 2 yards, which makes a lot of space for, you know, the likes of Maddison, Tielemans in midfield. And do you know what? I think my unsung hero really at the minute is Albrighton in the Leicester team. He's having a real good patch and creating a lot of chances and doing well. So they have, and Harvey Barnes has come through the ranks as well and playing really well. They've got a solid back four. So Leicester I feel like it'll be a tough one for Leeds, especially, you know, as you say, since we've just beat Chelsea 2-0 at home, we've beat Southampton 2-0 at home. But then on the flip side, Leeds can, and they have done, they can really turn it on in games, can't they? And score a decent amount of goals. I always feel like teams that come up, if generally they can't score, they struggle, but that's not going to be your problem at all, is it? It's going to be the other end. So
I think we've scored 30 goals at the moment and conceded 33. So it's a bit sort of hit and miss sometimes. We have the ability to score goals, but we have the ability to concede quite a lot of goals as well, as we saw at Ellen Road. You know,
of course. And I don't know what you know, as a fan's point of view, if you stay up, are you guys seeing it as a success?
Oh
I
yeah,
think you should
personally,
yeah.
yeah. For me, yeah, anything above, well, any 17th and above, Matt, for me,
Yeah.
that's absolutely fine. So where we are at the moment is absolutely fine. I mean, I think for me, if we're winning one every kind of 2 or 3 games, I think we're doing okay. And I think that's pretty much where we're kind of at. You know, we lose a couple, but then we'll win one. Then we'll lose a couple, then we'll win one, or we might win
Yeah.
2. And that ultimately is going to keep us up. And I feel like Leicester, yeah, it's going to be a really tricky game, this, Matt. But you know, we have the ability to cause them problems. But Leicester, you know, from a Leicester point of view, Matt, do you feel like they're actually in a position to win the league?
We've done it already, and I know it was like an absolute 1 in a million shot that it happened. Everyone else had a bad season. We did well. Again, like I can't see it happening. Honestly, I can't see it happening. The consistency that you got to show to win the league. Leicester rely on not losing vital, important players for injury, and that's probably why we did so well. Or then few years ago, we didn't lose many of the key players for injury. So, I mean, for a Leicester fan, if you finish 4th, that's kind of like a real good target to aim for. Last year we thought we were going to do it and we slipped out of it. So I think as a Leicester fan, if we can finish 4th, then we've had a good season. I mean, no one expects us to win it or get there or thereabouts. But I can remember when it was 4 years ago or whatever, we didn't think we were going to win the league then until we'd actually won it. We thought someone was going to catch us up.
What was that like, Matt, as a fan and obviously a former player, to see them lads lift it?
It was just weird.
Yeah.
Like it was like comical, really, because I was living up in York, teaching the kids up in York. They all knew I'm a Leicester fan, and I used to go in, on a Friday to the lads that supported Man U or Man City or Liverpool and be like, oh yeah, we're going to batter you this weekend. Don't worry about it. And then we actually did.
Yeah.
And I was going in on the Monday thinking, oh my God, what's going on here? Like it was just literally, I think the whole country wanted us to win the league, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was one of them stories, wasn't it? It was just like, you know, it will never happen again, that, and it will never. I don't think it will. It was an amazing achievement, that, to be fair. It really was.
Again, like I kind of said earlier, team morale and the team dynamics that Leicester City had at the time were quite clear for everyone to see. Everyone was pulling in the right direction. They had the lads on the bench that didn't play much, but when they come on, they put their all into it. And, you know, the goals that, you know, looking back, there was a lad called Ajoa that come off the bench and scored some vital goals. He was never the first choice striker, but his contribution made him win the league. So it's just, you can't underestimate the power of the team mentality and the team togetherness. And that goes a long way. I don't think many successful teams will ever, they won't be successful if they don't have that. If they've got a bunch of individuals, you've not got a chance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. You've all got to be pulling in the right direction. And it was obviously clear that they absolutely were. It was an amazing achievement, that, to be fair. Did you go to, I mean, obviously you were in York, but did you get to any of the celebrations?
I got to one of the games near the end of the season. I took my students down. I took 20-odd students down to one of the games in the evening. I managed to wangle like 20-odd tickets to. It was a West Brom game, but just to be around the ground and around the atmosphere at that time, it was like absolutely nuts. And yeah, I was watching it and kind of I made my way back down to Leicester to see family at the time, and just the feeling around the city was. Yeah, everyone had the flags out and everyone had banners up and stuff. It was really good. You could imagine, couldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a shame, obviously with this time that if it were to happen again with any sort of story like that. I mean, obviously at the moment nobody would be allowed to do it, but it's memories again that you take away. Even from just watching it as yourself as a fan. You probably will never see that sort of thing again. So it's although having said that, top of the league at the moment, like I say, Brendan Rodgers is doing an unbelievable job, isn't he? To be fair.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like there are a lot of unsung heroes. Indeed, he's filled kind of the role of what Kante did 4 or 5 years ago really well. He just seems to have a decent balance, and everyone, again, working hard for each other. They all know the style of play that he wants to play. They've still got that kind of, quick counter-attack through ball over the top to Vardy in the locker. He still plays on the shoulder. People are still scared of that. Still like to get the ball in the box quickly. I watched it the other night and I was jumping up and down, like getting excited, thinking, do you know what? I'm half getting that feeling again that we're doing all right.
You never know, do you? I mean, Champions League football again would be good, wouldn't it?
That'd be class. I mean, Chelsea are a decent team, but watching it in the first 5 minutes, I thought, do you know what? We're going to batter these. And I know we kind of got lucky a little bit with a penalty decision, but we're half a decent team.
They are a good side. They've got a good group of solid players. They've got a good structure to it. But obviously, you do work for Leeds, Matt. And do you get any opportunity to get involved with the first team, or do you get around them? Obviously, with you working away now.
No. It's quite separate, to be honest. Like, we are part of the football club, so we're not like a separate identity. We are linked to the football club. I think my boss is trying to arrange, kind of like a lockdown Zoom call like this. For one of the first team players to speak to all of our students all together. So there'll be I think that's what she's trying to get. I think she's actually getting it sorted at the minute. So it'll be nice for the college students to be able to see a current first team player and speak to them and ask them questions, or get a little bit of a kind of an insight into what the club's like from a professional's point of view at this moment in time. But no, we don't. Well, I like I say, I'm based down in Nottingham, from Eastwood Football Club. So it's I'm not up and around the place too often unless we have to go up and have a team meeting.
Fair enough. So finally, Matt, what do you reckon? I'll just ask you for a kind of score prediction for this game coming up. At the King Power, isn't it? It's next Sunday, isn't it, as we're recording, I think.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to go with loads of goals, bit of end-to-end action, but I'm going to upset you all and say we're going to nick it 3-2.
3-2. Well, that'd be a good game to watch, wouldn't it, mate? I think, but it just leaves me to say, Matt, thank you very much for coming on and chatting. I've really enjoyed chatting to you and getting your views on Leeds and Leicester. It's been a real pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.
No worries. Really enjoyed it too. Thanks for inviting me on, mate.
You're welcome, mate. No problem. Take care of yourself.
Cheers, George.
Cheers, mate. Bye.